This show is sponsored by Realtor Cynthia Bear, Putting Down Roots. Visit your in-town real estate specialist in Atlanta at cynthiabaer.com. And Wonder Shop, a co-working community and after-hours who knows what in Candler Park. Check us out at wondershopatl.com.
You are now tuned in to the Good Gracious Show. Welcome.
Howdy, Good Gracious family. It is Thursday, March 22nd, 2018. I am Boyd Baker. Good Gracious Show, episode 101. Yes, it is spring officially in Atlanta, and the low last night was 32, I believe. Highs are in the 50s and 60s. But, just wait a minute, and it'll be in the 70s. You don't know what happens. But fortunately, all this crazy wet and mood swing weather has knocked the pollen out so that it's not been nearly as bad as it has in the past. So fingers crossed it stays that way. Anyway, this weekend's a big weekend all over the country, and Atlanta's just as big. We've got a science festival here in town, which is a really amazing thing. They take over large swaths of Atlanta and bring science to everybody. And at the same time, Saturday, it's the March for Our Lives. That movement kind of started from the Parkland High School kids, where they're walking in Washington, D.C., but folks here in Atlanta are going to meet at the Center for Civil Rights, Civil and Human Rights, I believe, and walk up to the Capitol and try to talk some sense into our legislators about, creating some sane gun laws, things that'll make the world better for our kids and our teachers and our everybody. Every little bit counts. So not a time to debate it here. That is not my thing. But I do hope that you get active in whichever way you feel as an American you want to see our country go. And the best way to do that, awesome to march, awesome to chant and to sing, but put out an email, a letter, a postcard, a phone call to your legislator, whether it's a state legislator or, one of your congressmen. You just need to do that. That's the one thing that moves the dial. That's for sure. So, enough about that. That's my rant. On this episode, I've got Mike Rizzi, a drummer here in Atlanta, an amazing musician and all-around bon vivant. People know Mike for his gregarious ways, and I think you'll hear that in our interview. Always a fun time. And he's got a new album that he's working on with John Driscoll Hopkins, is helping produce. And the first single off it is Great Divide. It's just a beautiful, heartwarming, heart-wrenching love letter to his son, kind of a cat's in the cradle for the modern age. Anyway, it's cool. You ought to check it out. It's blowing up some good press out there on CMT. It's getting a lot of publicity. It's a pretty song, so I'm looking forward to that album. And then also on this episode had Sarah Higinbotham and Bill Taft from Common Good Atlanta, and the work they're doing, organizing professors and teaching classes in some local prisons is really impressive, and their take on it is not what you might expect. I think that's what I'll just leave it at, and you really ought to check them out. It's Common Good Atlanta, like I said. So I hope you enjoy.
I am Mike Rizzi. I am a singer-songwriter, drummer, and I'd like to think I'm a musical
genius.
Entrepreneur.
Genius.
Yeah, we can't go there yet.
That's for others to decide.
I've got to make my mark.
That's right.
Not scars. I got to make my mark.
That's right. Well, in the musical world, what's been your path here? What have you been doing, or what brought you up into this point?
Well, I've been just a drummer and just feeling great in that role behind the kit. and just being able to, sing backups. And I've always had a passion for writing songs since I was 5. So, the Sweet Tea Project was, and it still is, one of these outlets where we have 5 singer-songwriters in the band.
Wow.
So,
I had no idea.
and with Ed, you don't really need another songwriter in the band. I mean, the guy sneezes melodies, so it's oh man, number one.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. So, but it was cool. I mean, it's like a good release, and it just kind of eases you into, wow, maybe I can do my own EP or a single or whatever. And then I started working with John Driscoll Hopkins from Zac Brown Band, and John and I are working on a few projects, including he's the producer of my record, and we're doing some music for a movie called Adolescence that's going to be out hopefully this year, and we've got like 5 to 7 songs that we did. I'm in a little scene in the movie where the band is playing, and
you get to be the drum guy and the
I get to be the drummer, believe it or not. So I mean, it's
typecasting.
And Hop is what is he? His name is Spike or Spider. I can't remember, but he's a biker that sings in a band. So it wasn't really a big stretch.
He fits that role. Yeah. You guys are both kind of filling.
Yeah, but the movie's really cool. And
is that a local production?
No, it was out in Los Angeles.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
A director named Ashley Avis.
Huh.
And Adolescence, the movie, I think it is on Facebook, so you can kind of, it's about to start happening.
Really?
So it's been cool, and we're this fictitious band, which became a band called the Bloody Wolves of Venice. And it's...
Did this become like after hours after the shooting ended?
Well, while the shooting was happening, it's interesting you say that, while the shooting was happening, it was... John and I and our wives were in this little trailer, and we're just kind of sitting there waiting for this. I think it was a party scene in the house that we were a part of too. Obviously John has bigger roles than I'm just a little
drummer boy.
The drummer boy. Yeah, right. And we just started coming up with names, and it's in relation to the movie, so we just kind of. Just came up with the Bloody Wolves of Venice, and the guy came over and said, "Hey, let me draw a logo." And I was like, "Wow, this is cool." And I mean, it's heavier rock, so it's different, but it's also just.
But that's in your wheelhouse, though.
Yeah, right? I mean, it is. But I mean,
people
this
don't
was
realize
like,
that. So, I mean, they think of you doing, what you're doing now, or with Sweet Tea, but you
I try not to play the
5/8.
Same gig. Yes, that's right. I try not to play the same gig twice.
Yeah.
So country music or. Punk rock band, or this is like kind of flirting with death metal sometimes. So it was really challenging. I'm on my
doing a lot of
limbs.
headbanging.
Yeah, right. But it's so cool. And Greg Lee and Mark Donnells from Yacht Rock are in the band as well.
Oh, cool.
So it's been fun. Been a fun project.
So you all did that in L.A. Everything was done there?
Just the filming.
Just the filming.
And John has a great private studio at his place called Brighter Shade Studios, which is, I mean, that's where I'm recording my record, and it's incredible.
Awesome.
It's so great. It's such a great, and he's just a wonderful guy. I've known him.
Oh, yeah.
95.
Sweet guy.
Yeah. You know John, right?
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Well, that's cool. So you did the film, and did that kind of get you... Did you already know you were going to work on your own material, or had you been working on it? I mean, you're always kind of working on material, I guess.
I mean, the song Great Divide, that the video's on CMT now, that was just really intent. I wrote that with Sonia Lee, and we wrote it when I was on tour with her in 2011, I believe it was. And, when that ended, I just got Will Harrison and Greg Shapiro, who were in the band with me, and I said, let's just cut this track.
Yeah.
And I had it for a couple of years, and
just sitting there.
Hop was like, man, why don't you bring that track over and we'll sing some vocals? And he really got me in the space, and like within 10 minutes, I cut the vocal line, and he's like, man, I'm going to sing all over this. I'm like, cool, great. I'm like, awesome. But we also need a girl. And so got my friend Sarah Dugas, who lives in LA now, and wonderful voice. And it was.
So did that track? Was that the launching point, kind of?
Yeah. So I it's kind of it's a song written about people that deal with long distance and missing people from long distance and all that. And, you know, my son lives in Holland. And so I wanted to kind of make this video with director Harold Sellers and also my wife. She snuck a lot of footage at the airport that I didn't know. Like I always tell everyone, I'm trying to think of ways not to put them on the airplane.
Right.
And Harold related to this story, seeing that he has kids from afar and he doesn't see him, so he was able to throw his heart into this video, and I was just going to, the song in the video, I was just going to give to my son for his 13th birthday, December 1st, and then just started talking about the idea with some people, and they're just like, are you going to do a record? I said, yeah, I want to do a record. Yeah. So I had all these songs, and I mean, here we are. I mean, they're taking shape, and it's really cool, and I'm excited, but I also feel like this is uncharted territory. I
was going to say, you're being dragged along by the fates right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
It's a wild ride, but just hold on.
It's great. I mean, my expectations were that he always had a video, knowing how much I love him. Yeah. And I was going to maybe do one show. So I've already kind of passed my expectations in my head. So.
Well, it's a beautiful song. I mean, I got to tell you, as a dad, it's... Oh, I just can't even start to go down that path.
You know, it's weird. It's like I still have a hard time watching parts of that video that just like...
Oh, yeah. Just tears at you.
It does, but...
In a good way.
Yes.
Right. That's the key.
In a different way. You know, I'm coming to find out because of a lot of the feedback I get from these families.
Yeah.
I get families from like even military and businessmen that are just away from their kids for like 4 days.
Right.
And they're just like, it brings out the dad, and it brings out, you know, like even parents, mothers, they're all like writing these nice notes, and I don't know who they are, and they're buying the single, they're buying the record, and I mean, geez, I'm not alone in the way that I feel, and that was a good thing. It was very healing for me. So it's and it's also been infectious. And like I'm ready to throw myself into this, and so the ideas aren't just ideas for another band, and let's not listen to the drummer. It's like, if I speak up and I say something, or I'm asked, what do you want to do? I'm like, wow, this is kind of liberating.
So what's the timetable on the rest of the album? Do you know?
Well, I've got a Pledge Music campaign going, and I have 22 days left to raise the funds for it. I'm 86% there, 86, 87%.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, it's really important that people, if they want the music and they understand, you know, me and my passions for music, I think they're going to love the record. I've tried to write from the heart because that's the only way I know how to write. Yeah. I don't really write fictitious stories or tales, even though there are a few that are...
You change the names to keep the innocent.
I'm not... Well, I'm not Springsteen.
Yeah, you're not outing everybody in the world about what they did.
Like he's writing about... I mean, he just has that... My thing was like, just do it. Yeah. Like, I didn't want anyone to say like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Right. Because I'm like, I don't care.
Right. That's the best way to work from.
I'm going back to the 8th grade mentality of just wanting to play music, and it's been very successful. Yeah. And, you know, thanks to the help of Leslie Fram, she picked the video up, and
nice.
She said the same thing. You know, if it's meaningful, and she said she had a lump in her throat, and then when I got the email, I replied to her, and I was like, I have a lump in my throat. This is amazing. Like I'm still, like, I wake up going, wow, this is really cool.
Well, it seems, now maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like maybe when you originally wrote the song and there may not have been the same intensity of emotion attached.
It was hard.
Was it just a different, you go through a different time in life?
Well, we were, the story was that we had a day off from the Zac Brown Band tour. And actually, we just stopped that leg, and we were about to go on the road with Eric Church for a month. We were doing openings for him. And Sonia and I wrote the song in 30 minutes, like after bowling. on a day off at the Grand Canyon.
Right.
And she was talking about someone she was missing. And she's like, you understand because you're missing your son. You're missing my now wife, Jolie. She's just like, the only thing between us is this great divide. And I grabbed a guitar.
You said, that's mine.
And I'm like, I know a couple of chords. And I'm like, the only thing between us is this great divide. And she's like, grabbed it. She's like, we're writing this together. And literally 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It was pretty much done. I did some finishing things on my version. And
has she ever sung it, or has she done it too?
oh, well, we played that song in front of, had to be 18,000 plus. Like 3 nights later without rehearsing it. And I think it was in Spartanburg, South Carolina, with Eric Church. Yeah, and that was a moment I'll never forget. Like, she just looked back to me, I looked at her, I'm like, we just did that. And so we played it here and there, but it was never one that was always in the set.
Right.
But I was like,
well, but that's good, though, because you got to feel it. You got to hear it. You got to see it bounce off people and know where to tweak if you need to tweak.
And I'm still, like, I still try to do that with my limitations on guitar.
It's tough. Piano, if you had more fingers, it would be better, right?
No, more time to learn it.
Yeah.
But I mean, just wonderful the way that it all kind of works out once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we tend to, like, there's a song that I'm writing with John for the record. It's like, sometimes life is like a song that writes itself. Don't get in its way. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a perfect example of it. It just happened.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty grateful for that opportunity. And
that's awesome that you got such great, support, and to know the community like you do, and to have, Hop help you out. And
he was always one cheering me. Like, do a Mike Rizzi record.
Yeah. I'm like, and he said it a little deeper than that. Let's be honest.
That was an excited Hop.
That was an excited. It's being tickled.
Yeah, he was real happy. But I mean, it's cool.
So what is your thought on when the record does finally come together, as it will?
Well, we have a deadline, and I want it to, it's a little symbolic, but I really want this record to be in everybody's hands by Father's Day.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
it's perfect time.
And the album is called Appreciate What Remains, and there's a certain theme that goes through most of these songs that no matter where you are in your life, we always experience highs and lows. And as a musician, you always kind of think about that. At least I do. That when you're on top, it's like Chris Rock always said, "Here today, gone today."
Yeah.
And it's always kind of resonated with me. So I just keep thinking about that middle ground. If we can find a good way just to live in the middle, because your highs and lows are the dynamics of life. If you don't have the highs, you don't know what, you don't know what a great day is if you don't have a bad day.
Right.
So there's a certain gauging in the themes and, songs for my son, songs for people that I really...
So it's truly a concept album. It's got a theme for the most part.
Yeah, it ended up kind of being that way, and it's conceptual in that way. Yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad thing.
No,
it's rare to find them these days.
Again, I'm just kind of, I mean, if there's a concept, it's all from the heart.
Yeah.
And I mean, if people are expecting, man, was he going to play a drum solo? No. I hate drum solos.
Do you hate them? Really?
I mean,
how does a drummer hate a drum solo?
I like watching everybody else do them.
Is it because you don't like to do them yourself? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The pressure?
It's kind of weird.
Well, you're a flashy guy. You're a show off.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It would make perfect sense.
Yeah. I'm a strong personality, as I've been told. That's the name of by the way, you're the first one to know that is going to be the name of the band.
Strong personality.
Mike Rizzi and the Strong Personality. So anybody that plays on the record, they're in the Strong Personality.
There you go.
So, yeah, it's...
Well, do you play drums on the album?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but just...
Yeah, I play drums on the record.
Yeah. It's got more of an Americana feel, or do you consider it? What do you think?
It's kind of weird because,
folky?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all the music that I've played.
Really?
in the last, I mean, a lot of it from the South, since I've been here since 93. So there's...
We've tortured you. Your Southern brethren have changed your Northern ways.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than the Atlanta music scene.
Yeah.
I
try to tell people that.
I mean, I like the New York music scene. I'm living in LA and working there, but it's a whole different thing here. I mean, there's no separation because you play this music and that music. Here in Atlanta, you see people and you feel people like kind of supporting you, no matter if a death metal band's going out to see a folk artist. We somehow keep ourselves closer together.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing. And I'm proud to say that I wanted to join the Grammy chapter, so I'm a part of the Atlanta Grammy chapter, and
nice.
Hoping that I can kind of make a difference and, just kind of go with their causes and what they're doing. They're doing great things. Trying to, they're trying to make Atlanta the best music scene out there, and I think they've already done it, and obviously it helps when film is here. Yeah. And then all the resources film people are starting to use. A lot of my friends making movies and music for movies, and so it's an exciting time, and I'm glad and surprised to be in this position that I'm in right now.
Well, so when you go on tour, will it be stripped down kind of? Will it be a full band, or do you know? You don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
you're just waiting for that next step.
I have, like I said, Boyd, I have the one show expectation.
Yeah.
I know what I want to do for the show.
It's just one at Phillips Arena. That's all you want.
Man, it didn't even have to be there. It just, I need it where we can all kind of move around a little bit. So that would be, maybe Smithsonian Bars. I don't know. I'm just, I'm trying to piece it all together. I'm trying to get this all funded.
But not get ahead of it. Yeah, because you don't want to put the cart before the horse.
But obviously booking and stuff like that, you know how that works. You got to be able to think ahead.
Yeah.
And I know the guys that I want to play with, and we may play on a Monday.
Yeah, you never know.
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, it may be a non-traditional type of venue.
That is cool. So that's the focus. Everything right now is just full on. Get it done. Get the pledge music thing going.
Yeah, at this point right now, I just, we've got house concerts that we're doing, and we got some special ones, and they're going to be great. I mean, but it's me in a different type of arena,
right?
And
how do you feel coming from behind the drum kit a little bit on this? Because you're doing house concerts, I'm guessing. Are you playing guitar and just kind of?
I may play guitar on a few songs. Maybe Cajon, just sing and I don't know. I mean, probably tell stories and not shut up.
Yeah. And not sing enough.
Right, yeah. Man, it was a 4-hour show and they played 2 songs. Yeah. That's Rizzi. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think that the guys that I'm using right now that it was kind of a dream of mine to have
your super band.
Myself and John Hopkins and Brian Biskey from the Sweet Tea Project and Will Harrison, who plays guitar with Billy Currington, but he was also in Sonia Lee's band. So Will played piano and slide and guitar and all that stuff on The Great Divide, and I'm just I'm happy to have him.
Yeah.
And the 4 of us together, we're having a ball.
I guess that's the key. Have a good time.
It is. I mean, you have to have a good time.
It'll come out. It'll show. If you're not having a good time, it'll usually show.
Yeah. You know that, right? Yeah. You're very exposed if you're sitting up there yawning.
Exactly.
Yeah, just like, No, never, ever, ever. I have too much fun playing.
Well, cool. Well, if people want to learn more about everything that's going on in Mike Rizzi world, what's the best way for them to find that?
Let me put my glasses on. You can, if you go to pledgemusic.com, you just search Mike Rizzi, Rizzi, and you will see that it comes up, Appreciate What Remains. You can pre-order the record or do whatever it is that you do. We have T-shirts and
all that good swag.
My wife, her company is JolieLaurenPhotography.com, JolieLauren.com. And we have some cool books and some lyric books and some pictures, and I'll probably write, a little bit of what the songs are about.
Yeah.
And, just kind of give an idea as to what I'm writing about, I guess.
Well, cool.
Yeah, and RizziMusic.com. You can find everything there too.
Yeah, and then you'll end up all over the social medias, blah 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 blah.
Well,
as soon as everything breaks, you know,
it's
what you got to do.
It's like I said, here today, gone today.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. It's kind of like a dream that I didn't have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems to be.
Which is kind of a good way to go about it, though, because then when it's gone, you're not quite as broken.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Other than the dreams we might have had in the past.
Oh yeah,
became.
the dreams in the past, and and then you get carjacked. Yeah. You don't want that.
No.
No, the ideas are all in place, trying to, really shape up the songs. I'm constantly working on it. 16, 17 hours a day. I'm at home. If I'm not writing, I'm figuring people are probably tired of hearing this whole campaign. But, like I said, I feel like I'm in the musical Amway or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, geez, man. It's like, hey, get in there and box. What?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just like thrown into this ring and you make it work. And I'm just trying to be completely honest and, obviously it's been cathartic. It's a very personal themes, I should say. And the major goal of this whole Pledge Music campaign, and the reason why I went with Pledge, because obviously they do a lot with music, but they were definitely open to my idea. We have this thing called a ticket to Caden. Caden is my son, and with any kind of donation you give to that goes directly to a fund that gets me, because musicians at my caliber are starving. If we take one day off, we're screwed.
Yeah.
So obviously now with 8 months off since my last venture, I've been trying to figure out how do I get to him, because that's what I was kind of preparing in my head to do what I was doing. But it ended up being very difficult and very challenging. And I'm like, well, what if I did this? And so you get the record, but you can donate to that cause as well.
Right.
And everything, I tell everybody, everything that you pre-order, that money is going towards, after expenses, it'll go right to seeing his school for the first time. I've never seen his school or his house. He comes to me for about 6 or 7 weeks of the year. That's all.
What does he think about all this?
Well, it's funny because
you share the music with him?
I mean, he's European. In Americans, it's very different, but music is universal, obviously. So I sent him the video, and we FaceTime every day. We have a good relationship, and he's just sitting there like looking at it, and I'm like, man. He goes, when is this going to be on the air? And he's fixing his hair.
Yeah.
I said, hey, you like the girls, huh?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, are the girls, did they say anything? He goes, oh, I'm so famous. I'm so famous in America. But now I'm famous in Holland because someone saw the video, and then I guess his class or his school watched the video. So
You're the cool dad, finally.
Well, yeah.
It takes forever to become a cool dad.
Yeah, from the clown dad.
Right.
Like the funny guy, the Muppet.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the reason why. That's the big mission behind this. And also, too, I love playing in bands. Yeah. So maybe this, I don't know, recognition that maybe someone will be like, hey, man, how about drumming and singing backup for this band?
Right.
Because I love being on the road. I actually miss touring.
Huh.
I hate days off.
Well, there you go. Now you've heard it.
Yeah.
Ready to tour.
There you go.
Sign them up.
Yep. New Kids on the Block, man.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Well, thanks for coming out, man. I appreciate it.
Man.
It's a good time.
Pleasure. Always seeing you, man. So this is a song called All to Myself. And this is one that I wrote for my wife. I was lucky enough to be able to propose to her on the stage of the Hollywood Bowl in the middle of a Zac Brown concert. No joke. So it was a sinister type of plan that I was just so fortunate to know Zac in that way, and he was like, "Man, let's mess with her." I'm like, "Oh, great, man, you're on my team." So I kept this secret for about 6 months, and she was out there shooting, taking pictures, and I introduced her. So as soon as she said yes, and then they serenaded us with At Last. So we got the slow dance on the stage. I mean, it's crazy. And I wanted to challenge myself. That was like one of the highest moments of my life, and one of the most nerve-wracking moments of my life.
For 6 months, I'd be nerve-wracking.
Oh, I was insane, you know. So the moment she said yes to the end of the dance, everything that was going on in my head, I challenged myself to write a song just from that particular spot in my life. So yeah, it's called All to Myself. So I'm going to give it the best that I can.
Get you all to myself. I will love you like no one else. Oh, this night in the fall is the start of something so true. With sweet wonder for you. How about a dance, dear, under this autumn moon? October winds serenade a sky of stars in bloom. Here tonight I give you my word, sweetest soul I've found. Honey, here is your spotlight to every eye in this town. So I get you all to myself. I will love you like no one else. Oh, this night in the fall is the start of something so true. With sweet wonder for you. Echoes fly off the Hollywood hills. My heart still beats like a drum. We knew one day we'd find our light. At last our time has come. This is all for you. As you stand by me in the arms of a woman I now can find my own. So I get you on. So I get you on to myself. I will love you like no one else. Oh, this night in the fall is the start of something so true. So oh, I get you all to myself. I will love you like no one else. I will love you like no one else. All to myself. There it is.
I'm Bill Taft, co-director of Common Good Atlanta, a college and prison program, and I work with Sarah Higinbotham.
And I'm Sarah Higinbotham. I co-direct the college and prison program Common Good Atlanta with Bill.
And what's the nickel tour of Common Good?
Common Good Atlanta is a college and prison program, and we bring the liberal arts to men and women in state prisons in Georgia.
Now, because there would be no program at any prisons in Georgia without a group like this, or are there educational opportunities outside?
As of today, education offerings have improved significantly, but 10 years ago when Sarah Higinbotham started the program, there were almost no opportunities for incarcerated men and women to take a college class.
So do you guys develop the programs and then they get to choose, or is there more of a, here's some options and these are the things we'll work with the individuals on?
That's a great question. The program is structured to be as student and scholar led as possible. So the men and women themselves give us feedback. They're interested in U.S. history or labor activism. They're interested in civil rights or maybe neuroscience. And then it's Bill's and my job to go find the faculty.
That's the easy part, right?
Which is, it's remarkably easy to find faculty who want to teach for free in college, in prison. In fact, not only do we have a waiting list of faculty who would like to teach, but they often purchase their own books for the men to read.
That's awesome.
So it's all volunteer organization, no paid staff, no paid faculty.
Do you cover I can't imagine you can cover every subject that somebody wants to study. Can they throw it out there, though, and you'll see if you can find somebody to bite?
We have never had a subject proposed that we have not been able to teach.
Really?
So in the past 10 years, we've taught literature, creative writing, philosophy, economics, public policy, pre-calculus,
But
U.S. history.
And Arabic.
We've had Arabic studies.
A few Arabic
yes, the
classes.
Arabic was requested, and we found the faculty member.
Well, so then the program's not necessarily continuous or contiguous, let's say. So this semester, you wouldn't teach the same thing next year the same time? Or do you just go on what the feedback is by what classes you're going to offer each? I don't know. Do you do it by semester? Or?
Well, we have a variety of course offerings. This spring, we're offering an accredited history class taught by Dr. Robert Woodrum from Perimeter College, and that is a semester-long class. But this summer, we're going to have some smaller or shorter classes, and these classes will be based more on the interests of the men and women. So it really depends on how much time we have. The type of course we'll offer.
And has the relationship with the facility, how do you work within those parameters? I mean, do they say, look, we'll give you this much time or that much? I got to think it's a little bit of a challenge logistically.
In our early days, we were given 1 day a week for 2 hours that day. And we were just able to pack as much as we could into that time. In the intervening 10 years, we have been named the Georgia Department of Corrections Volunteers of the Year. And we've just learned to work really well within the Department of Corrections, respecting what their needs are, what sort of language they need us to use. And because of that, the Department of Corrections has asked us to expand. We are now at Whitworth Women's Facility and also the newly opening Metro Reentry Facility in Atlanta. And they've asked us to go more. So it's just a matter of trying not to look too far over the tips of our skis.
Yeah.
And
you've built a relationship.
Right. We've built a relationship with the Department of Corrections, and something that we feel, I think, mutually gratified by, both the Department of Corrections and the faculty.
So would someone who's incarcerated then have a chance 1 day a week or maybe 2 days a week to take a class that just personally benefits them, or does it work toward anything that might be substantial as far as, I don't know, a GED or getting closer to a college degree? Is there a way to do that?
All of our students already have either a GED or a high school diploma that they received before being incarcerated. And at Phillips State Prison, our classes are accredited by Georgia State University. So they are accruing a transcript with classes.
Where's Phillips State?
Phillips State is in Beaufort, Georgia. Oh. It's right at the 985-85 split.
Oh, yeah.
So as prisons go, it's pretty close to the city.
Yeah. I had no idea. I drive by that all the time. Well, I don't know
right.
it.
And that's exactly
if you go to Gainesville or Lake Lanier, you're going to go there.
A lot of people don't understand what happens when a man or woman begins their sentence. They don't really think about where the punishment takes place. And I think if they do know the truth, they're going to be more open to reform and creating opportunities for men and women who are incarcerated.
So what's the other facility that you said, the new one that's coming online?
We've just started at Whitworth Women's Facility, which is just north of UGA in Hartwell, Georgia. And starting in March, We are going to be at the Metro Reentry Facility, which is a new reentry system that Georgia is piloting for people who have already served long sentences but are about to get out. This will be a transition center that will have substantial programming, and our college classes will be one of the programs that are offered.
Oh, nice. So it's transitioning somebody to be ready to hit the ground running when they are released.
That's right. And mostly what the state does now is either there is no transition process, or transition involves living at a center, working at a landscaper or for a construction company or at an auto shop, and then coming back and being locked in the facility at night. That does help to some degree to familiarize oneself with work and with the wider public, but it doesn't necessarily equip them with the kinds of things that they've missed out on for the last 10, 20, 25 years.
Wow. That's pretty fascinating. So how many students do you have in these classes? I mean, what's the teacher ratio on this?
See, we have, I guess the class consists of about 15 men, and we have one teacher teaching the class, but we have a support system in place with tutors and volunteers who give the men one-on-one instruction. And we found that to be pretty important because the men will come into the class with a variety of education backgrounds. So we want to welcome as many people as we can and give them the tools they need to complete a college class. And so that's where the tutors come in. So I have not thought about the ratio, but it's more than one teacher to 15 students. It's almost maybe one educator to 5 students might work.
So are the tutors and the support staff, are they also licensed educators, or are they just volunteers that want to help out?
I've not thought of them as licensed. I would say they're very licensed.
Yeah.
They're very, very
I don't know,
licensed.
Do they? Yeah.
No, they do. They have credentials.
Yeah.
And actually, they have super awesome credentials in the form that many of the tutors are either PhDs teaching at Perimeter College or Georgia State, or they're in a postdoc program at Georgia Tech, and they come out to Phillips State and work as tutors in our writing studio program. So in terms of licensing, that's pretty much.
Well, I just didn't know if anybody could volunteer. Or if you're trying to stay within your academia, so to speak, the people that could come and help.
Right. It's good that the Brit Fellows who we work with at Georgia Tech are pretty good because they understand teaching. And they understand working on students on a one-to-one basis. And that's a pretty unique skill. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I went back to graduate school in 2000 and I guess about 7. That's where I met Sarah Higinbotham, and that was when I began teaching. I'd never taught a class before then. And I learned I know about teaching. It really is an art.
What made you want to do it?
Well, I liked getting paid. I thought that was good as a grad student.
Because you like to eat and such and such.
I like that. But I think it's also, if you want to learn how to do something, you should teach it. So I have selfish reasons.
That have become more altruistic over time, we'll say.
Right, but I liked it. It's fun teaching writing, teaching it as a creative practice. I just love that. That to me is really fun and challenging, but humbling too. And that's why experienced tutors like the Brit Fellows are so helpful.
What are the Brit Fellows, so to speak?
What are the Brit Fellows?
I know. I feel like I'm on that.
We're so glad.
You can laugh, Sarah. That's okay. You can laugh on
Sarah.
Yeah, I know.
Sarah, what? The Brit Fellows.
She's trying to be the straight person, and it's not working.
The Britton Fellows that make up a large part of our staff right now are faculty who teach at Georgia Tech in the Writing and Communication program. And they are drawn, it's a 3-year teaching fellowship that draws candidates from not just the United States, but all over the world who come to Georgia Tech for 3 years to teach the Georgia Tech students, but they've also been a phenomenal source of professional, generous creativity for Common Good Atlanta.
Nice. Well, so what is it that you teach, or what did you start teaching, should I say, in the program?
At the prison?
Yeah.
The first course that I taught in the prison was a course in world literature, I guess that's what it would be called at any university. And it was essentially what I had taught already at Georgia State and at Kennesaw State University. It was a course that seemingly impossibly surveys world literature from Plato to Homer to Shakespeare, Emily Dickinson, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. We read that first semester. And from that semester on, the courses have been almost completely built and designed by the incarcerated people themselves. So they will learn a little bit about John Milton through Paradise Lost, and then they will start asking to read John Milton's political prose, which then turns to the other sources that feed into the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. So as intellectual curiosity works, the more they learn, the more they say, can we have a class in neuroscience? Mm. Or sometimes we have faculty who will call us and say, I heard about you guys on this great podcast.
Yeah.
and I teach public policy. Do you have a place for me? And so we'll ask the men, are you interested in public policy?
Yeah.
And so the classes tend to be very organic, very bottom up. And that's, I think, ideally because they are fed and drawn on intellectual curiosity. Yeah. That's one of the reasons they're so successful.
So are there classes? I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. Are they taught every day of the week, or is it still just like 1 day or 2 days a week?
At Phillips State, we have 3 days a week now. We have math on Tuesdays. We have the primary accredited United States history class on Wednesdays. And Friday is a support day where we have writing tutors, office hours. Many times we have guest lecturers. So our most recent guest lecture was a lecture on the Constitution by a Morehouse professor, Winfield Murray, and a series of lectures by Paul Pendergrass on why words matter. So most of our faculty are from the academic background. They teach at a university around the city, but we also have what we call citizen lecturers or living writers. Mm-hmm. And we've had, just recently, we had the editor of Atlanta Magazine, Steve Fennessy, come out to the prison, talk about journalism and what that looks like in the 21st century in print, discuss what his work is like. We had the DC Comics author Van Jensen, who writes the Green Lantern.
He lives right across the street.
He has come out.
Right. He's
right here.
I bumped into him and his family while they're walking right down McClendon Avenue.
Yeah.
Right.
And Van has come out to Phillips State Prison and brought the storyboards that he uses, and that was.
Oh, I'm sure that's.
It was a.
He's an entertaining.
It was an
guy,
astonishing day.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so if someone is taking this class, it goes 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Do they just get kind of a credit if it's not officially part of the accredited history thing? Is it just for them to put into their bank of maybe I one day follow down this path on a more serious level?
The accredited classes are traditional semester-long classes that you get college credit for. We have other classes that might last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and those are classes in which education is the inherent good.
Yeah.
Not a utilitarian purpose for it,
right,
but just...
People forget that sometimes it's good just to learn something new.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. You can't forget that, though, at the prison, Boyd.
Yeah.
Because there is such a hunger and a thirst for the kind of information that we access so readily. Yeah. But it becomes so clear at the prison that it's a source of tremendous pleasure And I think even those of us in academics forget that.
Yeah. Well, so when we go back historically on this, what was the reaction or the response when you first started the program? Were you building relationships there that people had to feel comfortable with these outsiders coming in to teach a class that had never been done before? Or was it immediately kind of a hit?
Do you mean the people who are incarcerated or oh, right.
Yeah.
It was immediate. It was immediately one of the most comfortable and exciting and challenging intellectually classes that I've ever been a part of. And I think I had been teaching in college for 8 years by that point. There was...
I would think the range of individuals, though, and their life experience is probably going to outshine the average college class in a lot of ways.
I think that's true, and I think it's also true that prison is a place of extreme deprivation, sensory deprivation. It's a place where your world becomes very narrow, socially, visually, even I think audibly. You just don't have the same opportunities to soak in the world that we are used to on the outside. And that creates a particularly fertile environment for what many of us take for granted. And that is hundreds and hundreds of years of beauty and wisdom and philosophy that can be found and studied in books. And by accessing people like faculty around the city, like Van Jensen and Steve Fennessy and Paul Pendergrass, who have access to that those kinds of histories and ideas.
Well, how has the program grown? I mean, other than obviously you get more educators involved, they're more interested in coming out. Have you found a similar expansion within the prisons and a desire to bring as much as you can bring, they'll take it?
Right. It has grown just a lot over the past 10 years. First, we started on Wednesdays, then we added Friday classes, and that was great. We brought in the tutors from the Georgia State University Writing Studio program, and that's another great group of volunteers we work with. And we've just continued to grow by bringing in shorter classes like the calligraphy class Julia Skinner taught last December. That was a 2-week class.
And how many folks have you seen, or how many folks have taken these classes? Did it go from a group of like 15 to now you're seeing 150, or I was just curious?
We have about 15 men at Phillips State. We have about 15 women at the women's facility at Whitworth, and I guess we'll have about 15 students at the Transition Center. But over time, I have not even, how many students do you think have? Several hundred. Yeah. And today was a great opportunity because many of our alumni are out now, and we gathered as a group and went down to the Capitol for Justice Day, and we registered and we received our name tags, and then we toured the Capitol and were able to speak to our legislators about criminal justice reform. And as teachers, that was, I think, very powerful for Sarah and I, because here were the men we had worked with and taught. They were engaging their legislators, making arguments and policy proposals, which is what citizens need.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's got to be very heartwarming on some level, that you could play a part in that. So what is the ultimate goal or the perfect mission of Common Good?
The ultimate goal is human dignity. We don't structure the classes around any kind of reform any more than we do that in our own college classes. But we believe that when access to higher education is more equitable than it has been in the history of our country, that everyone wins. This isn't a charity project. It's not for people who somehow have missed out on opportunities. It's a recognition that our country has really failed to learn how to educate everyone. And there are so many of us in higher education who recognize that the more elite higher education is, the weaker we are as a society. And you can't spend any amount of time in a prison without recognizing this vastly untapped pool of intelligence and skill and courage and this undaunted atmosphere that I'm not always sure how they maintain that in those circumstances. They're so dehumanized. And yet there's something about access to the thinkers who have shaped this country and shaped the world that really they have remarkably astute insight into. I've learned more in the prison classroom than all the many years of my privileged background in education.
Well, so how do you fund this work? How does this get supported? It's Bill, isn't it? Bill?
Right. Well, a lot of it is volunteer-based, but we have a fundraiser going on right now. We want to raise money to pay for tuition. We pay for the tuition for the men in the program.
For the accredited programs?
For the accredited classes, and we think that's important. The community should pay for it. I think over the long term it will make the program more sustainable. If we're dependent on state revenue, the legislators could strip it away, as they did in 1994 when the Tough on Crime bill signed into law by President Clinton stripped away Pell Grant funding.
So how much does it cost to have an accredited class for an incarcerated individual?
I think about $5,000 per semester for about 15 men.
Oh, so that for 15, okay, so per person we'd have to do the math.
Right, yeah.
I'll circle back.
But I'm not the math guy.
I'm not the math guy. I know, your words.
Right,
yeah, and your words too. Right. So, and I'm words. So this is... Well, that's a reasonable amount of money, though. When you,
it's very modest.
Yeah, very modest
for the return. For most of our history, we have done no fundraising, and nor have we written any grants, because we have just been overwhelmed with the generosity of people donating their time, just to get the men ready to pass the math portion of the Georgia State University entrance exam. Took about 83 faculty hours. And those were all donated. So that's just the math portion.
Yeah.
And so we have had thousands of hours of donated time that no one has paid for.
Yeah.
So the books are a minor expense.
Right.
Now that we are accrediting, we're looking for ways to make it more sustainable, because Georgia State does not pay their tuition. We do. Our nonprofit, Common Good Atlanta, pays the men's application fees, testing fees, and tuition and fees each semester.
And so what's the fundraiser that you guys are working on or that's coming up?
So we had our very first fundraiser, and it coincided with our 10th anniversary from 2008 to 2018. We had an event. All the public was welcome. We had 6 of our alumni there who spoke and also read things that had been written by their friends and peers who are still inside. So once again, we worked to make it student-led, not top-down authority, but invest them with a voice, which is something that our society has not been very good at giving them.
Yeah.
So we had a goal of $15,000, and we're getting close.
Phillips is where you started. How do you then expand and go to something like the women's prison?
Bill and I were invited to the Georgia Department of Corrections Central Office last summer, and Assistant Commissioner Jay Sanders said, "How many more places will you go, and how fast?" And that's a matter of great pride for Bill and me, that we've been able to foster those relationships with the Department of Corrections. But we started at Whitworth Women's Facility, which up until that point did not have a college program at all. And we began in October with some pre-classes. The course began in earnest in January. So it's met for about 5 weeks now. And Bill it's a class in critical reading and writing. Bill does the writing with the women, and with me they are reading William Shakespeare's tragedy King Lear, Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein, and John Lewis's graphic novel March. And we are putting those three texts in conversation with each other while Bill then does the writing. So their first book to read in college is a Shakespearean tragedy, King Lear. And their response to it has been astonishingly deep. They are empowered by one of the characters, Cordelia, who speaks truth to power to her father when he says, what will you say to draw a third more opulent than your sister? And she says, nothing. And that's an empowering moment for those women, to see a woman say to power, nothing. And then they also see the character Kent in anger over the injustices that abound in that tragedy. When he gets angry, he's rebuked by one of the kings who says, where's your reverence? Know you no reverence. And Kent says, aye, but anger hath a privilege. And the women have been taught that anger has no place in their lives anymore. Anger is a dangerous emotion. And I think there's a danger in that.
Yeah.
And so through the play, they find a kind of what Aristotle calls a catharsis, and just a sense of the tragedy that 400 years ago Shakespeare saw in families between men and women who aren't allowed to have a voice. They see what that looked like 400 years ago. And then the resulting discussions that we have, they then turn into material to write with Bill.
Thought of that, Bill.
Yeah, it is. I think really in a lot of ways we're going back to what Sarah and I started doing 8 years ago or so when I got involved. She would really teach the literature and I would teach the creative writing. And that really became, I think, an ever-expanding virtuous circle where we'd read to write and then we'd write to read, and each action would inform the other. So we're getting to see it play out again at the women's facility. And it's very powerful because the women realize they can have opinions about literature, and not all the opinions have to agree. They realize they can disagree. They can realize there's ambiguity at work, or what you might think a character is doing is not really what a character is doing. And with the creative writing, the women are working through the fact that they don't have to write stories with a happy ending.
Yeah, it doesn't have to wrap up and be all pretty in a bow.
Right. They think that they can look into the mirror and consider things, scars, things that have gone wrong.
Well, let me ask you, what's one of the most interesting or unexpected things that you've learned from teaching, whether it be men or women, maybe an individual who stood out?
I think that, I guess one of the big things I've always been moved by is how we all need to be told it's okay to tell a story which doesn't have a happy ending. That a lot of us need permission to know that. Happy endings are good. We want stories that give us insight and inspiration. But some days you just don't have a happy story in you. So it's powerful to see. I think then when a writer realizes that, they get a sense too of their responsibility as a writer. So they know how to use.
That it's not necessarily just about them.
That's right. They begin to really look beyond themselves. And when we study writing, we really study point of view. And one of the exercises is write a memory from another relative's point of view in your family. And that can be very powerful, because suddenly the writers look beyond themselves.
They're walking in somebody else's shoes.
That's right, and that's where empathy begins on the page, and then they begin to really live and embrace the value of dignity. So that's been a very, I think, a powerful thing for me, and you can see it happening with the plays too, with Shakespeare, and how they get those characters, and are impacted by them.
I think that's
what about Merchant of Venice? We should talk about that. We should talk about Merchant of Venice.
I blew King Lear. I murdered Cordelius Poe, but
that was a good. The King Lear is great. But Merchant of Venice was really big.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the men feel.
How they connect with certain characters.
Right.
It's the timeless element.
But it really is. It's a physical reaction to the characters, the conflicts, and you can see it and sense it. And there's an excitement about the complexity of human emotions and the freedom that comes with being able to explore all those emotions and consider them. And I think when you read Shakespeare, you see a man who's able to make those emotions into something coherent. And when we study writing, we try to have a similar outcome. But we understand we're not Shakespeare. Yeah. So we're cool.
Somebody's got to be the next Shakespeare, right?
We learn by doing.
At some point.
But so that's exciting.
I think one of the most important things that I've gained from the work is this sense of buoyancy against the structural injustices that they face. I think more often my response is to cower at injustice, perhaps, even with all of my privilege. But because when I think about how would I function in that kind of environment, and I'm afraid I would be in the fetal position for 10 or 15 years. But here they are reading Thomas Hobbes. They're reading Dostoevsky and Solzhenitsyn. They're reading the metaphysical poets and the great civil rights theorists of earlier in the 20th century. And they're not only reading it, they're writing about it and publishing about it. And there is this sense of awe at the kinds of minds that have gone on before and the way that injustices have been approached hundreds of years, 1,000 years ago in classic literature, that I think it's easy for us who teach, or even those who are privileged to go to college on the outside in Atlanta, who become a nerd, to just that kind of awe that we should be feeling when we open up the Leviathan or when we open up Locke. I think we forget. And one thing this program has really done for me is keep my awe wide open and really given me such a deeper sense of human dignity. And for that, I'm so grateful to the people that we serve.
Well, that's terrific. Well, if people want to learn more or find a way to get involved, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way for them to do it is on our website. It's www.commongoodAtlanta.com. They can also find us, I think, pretty readily on the internet.
With a simple search.
Yes,
find a little
exactly.
something
Right,
out there.
or let's see, I usually ride my bike down McClendon Avenue. I'm often jogging through Candler Park.
So, and he's always wearing his Common Good Atlanta
and,
gear, his shirt and his helmet.
Right, the Majestic Diner, you can find me there.
Lots of opportunities to connect. That's what we need.
Yeah, go to some live music shows, and maybe you can catch up with me there.
There we go. Well, terrific. Well, thanks so much for coming out today. I appreciate it. It's great hearing the story.
You're very welcome. Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you, Boyd.
That wraps up another Good Gracious Show podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Do check out those websites, Common Good Atlanta and RizziDrums.com, and his Pledge Music campaign. There's some really great folks doing good stuff here and representing the South very well. So I'm a big believer in getting out there when you can and meeting some of the great neighbors that we have all around us, and trying to inspire people to do things that really get them charged up and pay it forward, so to speak. So if you want to listen to any other episodes, you can check them out online. You can stream them. Just go to the website, goodgracioushow.com. You'll see everything there. Twitter, we got a Twitter handle at GG Show Atlanta, as well as on Facebook. Be our friend, Then you can get all the links and the music videos that I post and the stories that are out there, as well as updates on our live show, which, our live show is April 28th, Saturday, April 28th, down at the Switchyards Downtown Club. We've got a really good thing going down there, and I'm very excited about getting back. It'll be our third show down there, and the last one was a sellout, and I figure this one will be too. I've got my fingers crossed. There's going to be some really stupendous, I know I say this every time, some terrific talent. Anyway, I'm not going to say anything else about it. But if you saw the last show, you ought to come back and catch this next one. And I'm going to have tickets up. You can go to goodgracioushow.com and get them. If you're enjoying the intro and outro music that I play during this, know that that's Alex Gordon Hi-Fi. You can find him at alexgordonhifi.com. He's got a new album out. The guy's pretty prolific, and if you've been to the live show, you've seen Alex sitting there as my one-man house band. So go be a good neighbor, hug someone, and we'll talk to you next week.